Hello, and welcome to the European Resilience Initiative Center video podcast. Today, our guest is Hennadiy Maksak. He is Executive Director of Ukrainian Prism Foreign Policy Council. And we're talking about what is going on in Central and Eastern Europe, what are the goals of Europe and Ukraine in this cooperation. So tell me, please, Hennadiy, we have got on this week, we have got the first meeting of European political community in Moldova. It is the second summit of EPC, the first in Moldova. What was it all about?
First of all, Sergey, thank you for having me here in your podcast. My privilege. As concerning EPC, I think this is a natural development of the initiative which took part and which had started at the rotating presidency of France. And the first summit, as you mentioned, was last year. And I think it is natural that we have this second summit not in EU, but in a neighboring country with strong aspirations and ambitions about European integration. So it is something for us which is a big symbolism. We know that Ukraine has a lot of limelight when it comes to our needs and our cooperation, but Moldova somehow is in the shadow. So basically, I think this is the right political move, both from European partners and from the partners from our region.
But we have already the European Union for like a lot of time, the most powerful economic and political alliance in the world. We have Eastern Partnership, the cooperation with the countries which are not the members of the EU. We have European Energy Community, which unite us on very like concrete energy level. The countries who are aspiring to be the members of the EU and like align their energy policies to the EU policy. We have so much levels of cooperation. Why do we need this European political community?
Let's divide several tiers of this situation. The first one, country approach. I think it is very much the initiative of President Macron to launch this summit as some signature project French idea for the European Union. It somehow aligns with his strategic autonomy, or if you say strategic sovereignty concept, and means how to increase the outreach of the European Union, not only to those traditional partners, but to third partners, which could be providers of security or which could be contributors to some other initiatives. So I think it is rather for foreign policy arm of European Union, and it's basically lies in new ambitions of European Union to be more geopolitical. This was pronounced by President of European Commission Ursula von der Leyen. So basically, it lies both in interest of France and bigger actors in the European Union, and in interest of the European institutions. So I think this is very important for them to have this summit. But you also mentioned Eastern Partnership. Unfortunately, this policy is not developing in these days. I would say that since the last summit in 2021, there was no big progress on the positions of the European Union, how to interact with partners in the region. And partners are troublesome. Except for war of Russia against Ukraine, you have a big problems with democracy in Georgia. You have open conflict, although simmering, but still between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And Moldova is also in big problem with regarding to the hybrid threats from Russia. So I think it is still like a search for new instruments, which is not substitution of Eastern Partnership, but maybe somehow it is developed to buttress up this activity from European Union.
That is exactly what I wanted to ask you in my next question, like how much vanity project is in this European political community idea of President Macron, and does it help at the end the non-EU members to be listened in the EU, or is it just like a project let us do something which doesn't like remind us the former forms of cooperation?
I would say from the readings out of different European institutions, this is something not to substitute, but to expand the latitude and to show all the picture of cooperation. We mentioned Eastern Partnership policy. This is policy for 5 partner states. and plus civil society from Belarus. When it comes to other enlargement, this is yet another basket. So I think it was designed to show the real geographic area of cooperation, and to maybe to showcase where European Union is very active. For example, if you see the press release of President of European Council, Charles Michel, he met both leaders from Armenia and Azerbaijan on this summit. He also talked to Georgian authorities. He also talked to Ukrainians. So basically, he shows the spectrum of activity when he's engaged personally, politically, as an institution as well. So I think this is something which is very important for them. But for those other partners, I think this is also a good forum to share some concerns and observations. President Zelensky visited this summit not only because of our strong support for Moldova, our closest ally and friend and neighbor, but I would rather say it is also like next symbol and our acknowledgement that this forum is something we have to work with, I would say, in that way. So this is working initiative. Basically, it is still like detail light, I would say, in that way, because we don't understand still how it is operated. Would be there any kind of cooperation in between summits? Are there any working groups? They were created in Prague last year, but are they active? Are there any kind of output that could just show us that they are quite efficient on energy, on other issues? So many questions arise, but I would say if the European Union preserves this fora, it is something which is very interesting to show the, I would say, latitude of foreign policy outreach of European Union.
That is an interesting moment. Like you mentioned, the visit of President Zelensky to the summit, and of course, it is the first summit in outside of the EU, and in the country of Moldova is a country which is being affected by the Russian war against Ukraine. We know the missiles are flying over the Moldova airspace. We know that the Russians were obviously involved in attempts to ignite like some sort of violent protests in the capital of Moldova, Chisinau. And now, like, we have the second European political community summit in Moldova, and Zelensky comes there and signs a common statement with President Macron, who is the founder of this initiative. What are the chances for Ukraine to use this summit? Like, is it just like one more opportunity to raise the topics, or does this summit provide, or this format of cooperation, does it provide like new chances for new approaches to fighting back the Russian aggression?
Thank you for this question, Sergey. Very important. And let me make some preface to Ukrainian position. In times of French presidency, there were diplomatic consultations, and there was approach from French side via different channels to Ukraine that in time when you're trying to achieve your candidacy status to membership to European Union, it's impossible, guys. Just forget it. But we have French initiatives. It would be ambitious. It would have money. So basically join this initiative and let's work in this format. And on these consultations, there was a straightforward no from Ukrainian side. And there was even more aggressive position. If you propose this kind of way, we will try to torpedo in any political sense as we can this initiative, trying to expose its double edge, I would say, in that way. So we tried to stay on our course, and basically we succeeded. We have in June, we had this acknowledgement of our candidacy status, but these initiatives took another turn and took other shape. And I think this is important to understand the Ukrainian position. Other important point, Ukraine is pro-coalition country at this moment. So we're trying to create coalitions on every part of wartime diplomacy. Wartime diplomacy is what we use in Ukrainian Prism when it comes to assessing how we're effective with our partners in our communication. So I would say that every new coalition, every new fora which could supplement with any issue, be it sanctions, be it arms, be it financial support, be it tribunal and justice for war crime, I think this is something which we use every possible effort with this coalition. So I think this fora is also part for us. And basically, Zelensky made some publicity because I didn't meet a lot of news about it in European media about this summit. So basically, I think Zelensky attracted some new attention from media to this issue. And this is also important for and interesting for European partners. So to make long story short, I would say for us it is important, but better to see and to follow this balance, not try to lose other directions with this forum.
So from a certain perspective, it was more about like meeting people, like not to like providing some decisions or resolutions, but meeting people. It was more like political goals for Europe than to a EU summit from that perspective. But coming back to the question of the practical tools and decision implementations, because like any cooperation mechanism should have them. Are they foreseen? Is there like a chance for it to adopt some decisions and to fulfill them?
You're quite right mentioning that it is a forum for debates, a forum for discussions, and some closed discussions also take place, and it is very important. When it comes to practical decisions, I think this is something for European partners to decide, because in that way, this summit should be more connected to European institutions. Because when it comes to European institutions and European Union, there should be legitimacy to make these decisions during this event. So I think this is something still to decide for European Union and member states. At this moment, I think it is still like many possible ways for development. As I said in my preface, from the very beginning, it might have another shape of this summit, as it was in first concept of President Macron, but it took the channel of possible in political terms. So I would say if European Union sees practical prospects how to expand their leverage, they would try to connect it to activity of European institutions and to make it like it was the first time on sidelines of European Council in Prague. So it's all possible. But I think we will think that we are at crossroads to decide. Second summit, maybe not the last, which would be decisive. The third one would be, I think, the one where we understand what are directions for development of this initiative. So far, it is a good fora for discussions, as you mentioned, and no clear decisions are attached.
But to understand the situation better, is there any budget of European political community foreseen? Like, are there some permanent institutions within the community besides, let me say, the Secretariat? They didn't have a Facebook page until recently, like for 1 year.
You're right. This is something also connected to the bureaucracy of European Union. When you have institutions, European institutions, you have there is also need for coordination and budget. And in this fora, I wouldn't see for the close future that there would be budget attached and the decision would be made in coordinated effort. So this is still more like once a year meeting with some small budget from European side to foster this cooperation. I would assume that European Moldovan partners need some financial assistance to hold this summit, because it's like a burden on their budget as well to hold all these preparational issues. But otherwise, when it comes to some financial activity like it is now in Europe, Eastern Partnership, I think it is still for Europeans to decide, and it's not for the close future.
If we come a bit further from the question of the European political community and address the foreign policy of Ukraine towards the EU, How can we assess now what are the consultations between Ukraine and the EU regarding the membership of Ukraine? We all observed how fast last year the EU has granted Ukraine and Moldova the status of candidate members, and it was fast and supportive. But where are we now?
1 million euros question, Sergei, but I will try to map a roadmap as I see here from Brussels. It was a window of opportunities we seized at the moment in February 2022, and I think it was a historical decision on our side. And basically, the advocacy campaign, which was made both by authorities and civil society in all member states, in European institutions, it was brilliant. I would say it made this event happen, because basically it was so massive and it was so obvious for our partners that it is whole society support for this idea, that they decided to give this political decision to us in June 2022. But from that point, we see that the process is not so easy. There are big actors like France, which have their own opinion on enlargement policy. And in this regard, France will be trying to postpone the moment of some tangible progress when it comes to Ukraine, Moldova, and other countries on the path of integration, for the simple reason, as I say, because at this moment they fear that European Union becomes less instrumental, because and less administrated, I would put in that way, and they need internal reform. And after that, it is still possibility will be there to open for new enlargement. But if we just trying to stick to this position, that means for Ukraine still decades for integration. So that's why we're so fervent, we're so adamant to have the start of negotiations this year. This June, we expect interim oral decision on our progress when it comes to enlargement process, where we are at what moment. And we expect it is still politically possible to have the good assessment of enlargement package when it comes to Ukraine in October 2023. And eventually, with all stars in right constellation, we would have this opening of the accession process till the end of the year. It would be the maximum ambitious position, but it is possible and it is desirable, because I would remind you that next year that will be the full sway of European elections. That means that all European institutions will be preoccupied with their domestic constituencies in their own countries, and no room for big, sometimes divisive issues as enlargement process for European Union. So to wrap it up answer, I would say possibility is there. There are some stages to do, and what I can say, yesterday here in Brussels, Vice Prime Minister Stefanishina also held another round of talks and consultations with what we have achieved on this 7 steps approach. So I think it is still within our realm, within our arm reach to have this possibility, but it will uphill struggle as well.
Who is the best ally of Ukraine on this way to the EU?
Sometimes it is an easy question, sometimes it is a tricky question, Sergei. Easy questions, our Central European allies from European Union, which understand how important it is to be part of the bigger alliance with democratic values, with trade preferences and your own policies when you decide something collectively. I'm talking about Baltic states, about Poland, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic. But at the same time, now we see that it is not always black and white, because we see what we have now with transit of our grains via territory of Poland. And it is a clear breach and violation of association agreement. It's not foreseen such kind of mechanism. And it is a big headache for European institutions, what Poland and other neighbors do in this possibility. But anyway, I would say in terms of our integration to European Union, they stand as a bigger advocates, although they also are aware of the threat and danger of having big country as Ukraine is in European Union, because it also plays with reshuffling all the structural funds. And it might appear that Poland from user of these instruments might appear a contributor with Ukraine, with our level of GDP. So they still like aware of these moments, but they still advocate for that.
That's very interesting, because like we know that there are countries in the EU which said all the time, look, we have like good relations with our Eastern partners, but don't accept them into the EU. Let's create something else for them. Like that's how Eastern Partnership has been created, or that is how like the European Energy Community has been created, like to allow some sort of integration without allowing countries inside with all the rights of voting, veto right, etc. But interesting that you have not mentioned Hungary, which will most probably be the biggest obstacle on the way of Ukraine to the European Union.
It is, unfortunately, it is. But to be fair, prior to 2017, Hungary was also one of the staunchest allies for European integration of Ukraine. They tried to make their beat in this direction, but with all these legal innovations in Ukraine, they changed position, and it is very manipulative now at this moment. They tried to play balance between their Russia position and active role in European Union, but I would say now it is not a big secret for everybody that they are like a Trojan horse. There are even proposals from European Parliament somehow to abridge the functions of a country which is at presidency of EU, because I have to remind you that in 1 year, Hungary would be presiding in Council of European Union, and that means that those initiatives about like softening sanctions, having more softening position on some points with Russia, might appear on the horizon of European Union. So basically, this is a big problem, but unfortunately, due to the decision process in European Union, they can't bypass it in all ways, although in ways when it is possible to have a majority vote, it is a possibility for European Union to decide in alternative way. But you're right, Hungary is problem is a proper word at this moment.
What about like the other non-EU members who are also aspiring the membership in the European Union, like the Balkan countries? We know there was like a position that look, we are trying to get into the EU for so many years. We have done so many reforms. We can be integrated, and now we have been overpassed by Ukraine. Yes, we understand there was a war. There is a war. Yes, we understand Ukraine is important. But we feel somehow like forgotten in that race of the EU membership.
Such sentiment is quite high in European member states which are neighboring to Balkan region. And I would say that they're trying to advocate that although big countries like Germany, they're also trying to highlight that their commitment to Western Balkans is still high, and they should like have these commitments in a row. It was proposed when it comes to candidacy and to open accessions. Ukrainian position, which we advocate, it should be merit-based. Everyone who is more advanced on its path, opening negotiations or completing negotiations on accession should be there. And it's something I think we would educate all the way. And if to compare now our efforts, even in time of big war, what we do on our path to European integration, self-screening, all this adoption on the legislative level, all this enforcement of these laws in Ukraine, with some difficulties, yes, but it is still in process. Compared to other countries which are in relatively more peaceful conditions, it should be also taken into account by our partners. But to reiterate, there are some sentiments and there are such positions that Western Balkans should be first, then Ukraine, Moldova, and then we'll see. So I think it is something still to have diplomatic consultations and maybe some expert communities debates with our partners to make them understood. It is not the correct position. It is not fair. It's not a cricket, I would say.
Yeah, that's an amazing description of what has happened now. And this feeling of, is it fair? Is it not fair? Is absolutely dominating in the policy in the Central and East European countries since like several years, as the unfair treatment of countries of this region has triggered so much bad things, including the current Russia's war against Ukraine. My last question, and I would ask you to give a very short answer. Will we see Ukraine as a full EU member in the year 2033?
33 is possible, it's quite possible, but we should do our utmost this year in 2023. As I said, this is a decisive year, both in European cycles because of the elections and in terms of this window of opportunities. So if we are successful enough to open negotiation, that it is only to us and to our active diplomacy to have this path active and agile. If we miss this opportunity in 2023, it might be a longer perspective, unfortunately. So I would advocate for everybody who supports Ukraine to do our best to persuade our partners, European Union, to go not only to European institutions, but to every European member state, in pessimistic one, and trying to convince. And let me also mention our assessment we made in Ukraine. This is our annual assessment of foreign policy. We call it scorecards. We have 50 directions, and European integration is one of them. So for the last year in wartime diplomacy already, we have the highest score for European integration because we did enormous work, and we should continue with the same effort, not trying to ease and trying to be like lightweight. No, heavyweight, and to do utmost, we have this negotiation open.
That is an amazing perspective, and I totally agree. We have this year, decisive year, not only for the European integration, but also for the war on the battlefield. And hopefully Ukraine will demonstrate success on both fields, and will get stronger out of this year than Ukraine has ever been before. It was Hennadiy Maksak, Executive Director of Ukrainian Prism Foreign Policy Council. Thank you, Hennadiy, for this interview. Have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share our video channel, and get informed about our new stunning interviews. Thank you so much.